Today I'm going to talk about respiratory allergies and also food allergies. So let me begin with respiratory allergies. So the basic question is, what is allergy? So it's a hypersensitive reaction by our body to either a food or aeroallergens. So what are the most common allergies that we encounter? So it is allergic rhinitis, asthma, urticaria, eczema, food allergies. I'm going to talk to you in detail in a while. So let's talk about respiratory allergies, by which I mean allergic rhinitis and asthma. So these are some of the case scenarios for you to understand how children present to me. So here we have a 5-year-old girl with bouts of sneezing on waking up every morning with blocked nose over the past several months. She often rubs her nose. So we also have a 6-year-old boy with anxious parents. All of us are anxious parents, right? With complaints of frequent cough, especially at nights and early in the mornings. Treated by several doctors several times with antibiotics, but without much improvement. We also have an 8-year-old boy who develops a bout of cough when he runs or when he becomes excited, as he with laughter and cry as well. At other times he is hale and healthy. His father also complains of cough and wheeze when he goes to jog, especially in the mornings in winters. So we have a 15-year-old girl who is in class 10 now. So she had childhood wheeze, maybe let's say around 5 to 6 years of age. She was okay all the while until this year when she began to have cough and breathlessness, mainly before her exams. So these are some of the case scenarios that I come across. So now an important question that I ask parents who come to me is, any history of similar symptoms in any of the family members, either it is paternal or maternal. It could be at any point in the lives, not just right now as adults, but it could be sometime during childhood as well. Because here we come across this atopic family. So when I ask these questions to children, right, most often parents say, okay, yeah, we've had all these problems throughout our life, like, for the past 20 years or 30 years. So this is called atopic family. So very quick, so when I did my MBBS from Gandhi Medical College, I hardly came across allergies. So I thought probably there are no allergies in India. When I went from a residency to New York, allergists made a lot of money, the allergy clinics were always busy. So then I thought probably it's all because of the West. And so contrary to my expectations, though when I came back to Singapore for my fellowship, again it's East, but still there were so many allergy patients around. So then I thought probably it's something to do with the lifestyle, the Western lifestyle. And when I came back to India here, so because I knew how it was in Gandhi, we hardly had any allergy cases, right? When I came back here, I have seen plenty of allergy cases, respiratory, food allergies. Then it made me think, especially in the high-tech city area, all of you I'm sure, with the lifestyles here. So it's mainly to do with the westernization, pollution, changes in our lifestyle and all. And of course decreased infection. We hardly go and we hardly let our children play in the mud, right? Like how at least we used to do probably a little bit when we were young. And now we take them to the malls where it's all clean and neat, right? So that leads to allergies because the infections kind of come down. So here I just want to tell you how wide it is present. Asthma, it's about 300 million people suffer with asthma worldwide. And allergy is the most important cause in childhood asthma. And allergic rhinitis, it's almost always due to environmental allergies. I'm going to talk to you about it in a while. So the basic question here is it allergies or cold? So how do you differentiate that? So usually parents complain that my child has been having cold, constant cold for a very long time, for the past few years or so, right? Maybe a few months in a year. And some parents also say that not constant, but it's frequent episodes since starting school or something like that. So there are many symptoms that overlap between allergies and common cold. So let's see, what are the tip-offs for allergy here? Clear watery nasal discharge most of the times, and itching of the nose, eyes and ears, spasmodic sneezing, by which I mean they wake up in the morning with bouts of sneezing continuously, maybe 20 or 30. I see some smiling faces here, maybe you could relate to that, right? Okay, so and fever is almost always never from an allergy. It almost always suggests an infection. So what are the tip-offs for infection? Nasal secretions are often thicker and can be discolored. When I say often thicker, it doesn't mean always, but most of the times. And the child who has a cold might also have a sore throat and a cough, and the temperature may be slightly raised, but not always, right? Because we always know that viral cold might not have any rise in temperature, correct? And itchiness is usually not a complaint with a cold, but it's almost always a hallmark of an allergy. And a plain cold, how long does a plain cold last? Maybe 4 days, 5 days, or at the most, right? But usually, if it is allergies, it will last for a longer time, maybe through weeks and months, and sometimes if it is perennial, through years also. Having said this, it is normal for a school-going child to have 6 to 8 infections, like viral respiratory tract infections per year, which is normal. It only means to say that a child is going to school and he's playing with kids and we're not locking him up in the house. So that's okay. So we just have to give them symptomatic treatment, and I'm sure Dr. Shivranjani Garu would have explained that to you. So now let's talk about allergic rhinitis. So what is it? As I've told you, it's constant cold, it's present throughout, and blocked nose, runny nose, bouts of sneezing. And they often rub the eyes and nose often, something like this. And there is also this throat clearing cough. Most of the times we hear children do this. As if there is something stuck at the back of the throat, they kind of clear the throats. And of course, they also have this mouth breathing because the nose is stuffy and blocked. They'll have to open their mouth to breathe. And this is something we also, I think many of your teachers here, we see children taking naps at school. That's because they probably have disturbed sleep through the night because of the blocked nose, and it's part of their allergic rhinitis. And many a times during your parent-teachers meeting, that's the frequent complaint that the teachers have about the students, and also they have poor school grades because they're not able to focus during the class hours. So these are other symptoms: itchy eyes, ears, buzzing sounds, sinus headaches also, because because this is blocked, and there's a eustachian tube connecting this and the sinuses, and also you sometimes have earaches. So what are symptoms are something that the patient or the parent tells the doctors, and signs are something that we elicit as doctors. So we many a times, because of this frequent rubbing, right, we see these dark circles beneath the eyes, and we also have a crease here because this is called as the allergic salute. They keep doing this, they keep rubbing the nose, and because of that we see a line here, often crease on the nose. And sometimes we just look into the nose, we see this mucous membrane thickening. And this allergic rhinitis could be seasonal, it could be perennial. When it is because of pollen grains, it could be seasonal, it could be for a few months during rainy season or winters. But if it is because of the other dust mites and cockroaches, it could be throughout the year, which I'm going to tell you in a while. So I think this is very important. I'm going to introduce to something very special, and all of us really need to know about it. So can you just tell me what it looks like? Wow, that's great. Okay, that's nice, because many of them tell it's crab or something like that. So that's nice. So it's a dust mite, and it's a microscopic view. So what are these dust mites? These are microscopic organisms. These are present in the pillows, soft toys, all the upholstery, curtains, carpets, sofas and all. So what do they feed on? So we all know that we shed our hair every day, right? The same way we shed a dead skin also. So these house dust mites feed on the dead skin that we shed every day, and they leave their feces. So when we inhale the droppings, right, that's what most of us are allergic to. And that's when we wake up in the morning with the stuffy and the blocked nose. So what do they do? We know this is one of the reasons why we have this allergic rhinitis. This is one trigger. So how do we control it? These are very resistant organisms. So they're not going to die even if we wash this bed sheets and pillow covers in normal water. So we just have to change our sheets and pillow covers once every 4 to 5 days and soak them in hot water for at least 20 minutes. And then you can put it in the washing machine or get it hand washed. Or we also have this temperature controlled washing machines, right? It should be 60 degrees centigrade and above. And please do not have any soft toys at home. So if at all we do have, I think it's better we donate them. And the pillows needs to be changed at least once every 2 to 3 years. And we also have this house dust mite proof bedding, pillow covers and mattress covers. It's better we invest in them. And also the vacuum filters, right? The HEPA vacuum filters. So just make sure it's written HEPA, HEPA. So now again, so what do these look like? Any guesses? Sorry.
So there was one advertisement where they were using this Dettol spray to clean dust mite. So I have done my own research on that. It does kill, but I think we still should not recommend that because those sprays itself themselves may increase the allergies. What is your say on that?
Frankly speaking, I haven't heard that, ma'am. But
Research. Some people are advertising.
Right. But I
still prefer hot water.
Correct.
Wash, dry in hot sun.
That's what I would do. So for that matter, if I should just tell you this, I recall in my grandparents' house, we used to have this mattresses rolled. So we used to roll the mattress and put it away, and then in the night we just used to open and do it, right? Now we always have this mattress open all the time in our bedrooms. I think this is one lifestyle change that's again causing this problem of house dust mite. So again, these look like tennis balls, but these are moles. This is again microscopic view. So we do come across these indoor moles, right? Especially in the bathrooms, sometimes bedrooms where there is leaking pipes and all. And we also have this outdoor moles. Most of the times we see it on the barks or something, this powdery substance on or under the leaves. So we do have both indoor as well as outdoor moles. And so what do we do about it? This is also a trigger for allergic rhinitis or respiratory allergies. So what do we do about it? See, something like this, we do have, this is an air-conditioned room. We just have to make sure that we clean the air condition, we give it for servicing at least once every 3 to 6 months. And it's also better we don't have this wallpaper. I'm glad that there's no wallpaper here. But then when we just kind of flip the wallpaper, we find these moles at the back. So it's better we don't have also carpets, wallpaper, we just have to clean that. And if at all you find something, we can use this 5% ammonia solution, especially on the walls and all, to clean them. I think this is about moles. Can you just go to the next one, please? So cockroach, we know it's ubiquitous, it is present everywhere, right? So yeah, I can see that here. So basically, this is also a very important allergen. So what do we do? Of course, we do have now good insecticide baits, but besides that, what can we do? We just have to seal the crevices and then make sure that there are no dirty dishes at night. I mean, it's easier said than done. But then if there is dirty dishes and then water in the sink, right, that is the breeding ground for cockroaches. So when you turn on the lights at 2 a.m. midnight, then you see all these tiny, tiny roaches. Yeah. So the thing is, we just have to make sure there is no water in the sink before going to bed. And do not store waste at home. So yeah, again pets. Pets are so adorable. Looking at them, it's difficult to imagine that we can be allergic to them, right? So of course, pets do cause allergies, and it's basically the saliva and the dander that it is. Because sometimes some parents come and ask me, is it okay to have this breed of a dog? Because that doesn't have fur, is it okay? But no, it's not the fur that we're allergic to, but it's basically the dander and the dead scales. So it doesn't matter if it is furry or non-furry, if someone is allergic to it. And cats also are highly allergenic, and it's in fact more than dogs. And can you believe that even if you take the cat out from the house, the cat dander is so sticky that it's going to be there for at least 6 months, even after we remove the animal from the home. And so what are the pet avoidance measures? If possible, and if we know that our child or we are allergic to that particular pet, I mean, if it's a dog or a cat, it's better to find them a new home. And also make sure that it's at least outdoors and at least it doesn't enter the bedroom on the beds. And if a child or if we play with the pets, just make sure at least we change our clothes and then go to office or schools. And now that's about allergic rhinitis and some of the triggers. Now let's talk about asthma. What are the symptoms of asthma? Here it's cough. Cough, I would say it's mostly at nights and early in the morning. So it can happen throughout the day, but mainly for asthma it's sometimes at nights and early in the mornings. And shortness of breath, which is difficulty breathing. And chest tightness. I'm sure like the younger kids might not tell us, but if it's older kid, they say that some heaviness, I feel some kind of heaviness or chest tightness, and wheezing. I think it's very important to understand what wheezing is, because many times when parents come to me, so they say, my child has been wheezing. So when I ask them, so what do you mean by wheezing? I ask them to, make the sound and tell me. So they say it's gurgur sound. So gurgur sound is not wheezing. It's like the whistling kind of a sound, or a musical kind of a sound, which is wheezing. I think you can just go to your YouTube and then look for wheezing also. So what happens in asthma? So let's think this way. We take a drum and then blow in a drum. We don't hear any sound, right? But when we take a flute and then blow into it, we hear the musical note because of the narrow diameter. The same thing happens in asthma. This is the airway. Sorry, I don't have a pointer, but you see the airway right here. So normally the airway behaves like a drum. We don't hear any sound basically. But then when he narrows down during an attack, it behaves like a flute, and that's when you hear the wheeze. Sometimes it's audible outside, and sometimes we might have to listen using a stethoscope. So it often runs in families, as I've told you, like atopic family and all, no? What are the triggers? I think some of the triggers I've already mentioned, like the house dust mite, and some are pollen from the grasses, trees and weeds. Can you recognize the plant to the right? I'm not sure how clear it is. It's Parthenium. It's called Bayarivama. It's very allergenic. We do see this as a weed everywhere, correct? We just have to make sure that it's not there. And certain drugs, food colors and additives. So I wouldn't say this would directly cause allergy, but this definitely would cause allergy-like reaction. And it is also known to exacerbate asthma. And irritants in the air such as smoke, chemical fumes, strong odor. And we also know, see, this is all outdoor pollution, but indoor pollution is this mosquito coils and all, or agarbatti, samrani. So I would say we just better avoid it, especially if we have asthmatics at home. And exercise. So exercise is very important. I would never say do not exercise, but it's important to understand when to exercise, especially if it is an asthmatic. So better avoid going for jogging and all in the mornings before there is sun. So do not go out when it's very cold. Do not exercise when it's very cold. And I think I've mentioned a case to you about a 10th class girl. She was okay, and the stress of her exams is causing her episode. So stress definitely is a known cause to cause asthma exacerbation, and of course weather conditions of cold air, dry air and all. So allergens trigger about 60 to 90% of allergies in asthmatics. So what are the precautions in winter? So I think, COVID I know is a bad thing, but thanks to COVID that we know to wear masks now, right? So especially in winters, when there are a lot of viral infections on the rainy season, avoid taking young children to malls or big gatherings, especially when they're prone to more viral infections, because that could be a trigger to your asthma exacerbation. And woolen clothes. So we just have to, we all wash our woolen clothes and then keep it away after winter, right? The same way, when we again use them before winters, we still have to wash them, because again we see sometimes molds there. That again could be the trigger. And cold air exposure we spoke about, and exercise too. And diet. See, diet here, there is no special diet for asthmatics, it's the regular diet. But I think common sense is very important for us here. If it is cold, if it is winter, we need to prefer warm foods. And we shouldn't say, I'll eat an ice cream in Himalayas or when it's very cold. And the same way when it is summer, I wouldn't say go for hot foods, but maybe at least room temperature foods. And unless and until there is particular, if you're diagnosed with a food allergy, there is no need to avoid any foods for an asthmatic. And so what are the investigations? Skin prick test and spirometry. Skin prick test to see what the triggers are, and spirometry, sorry, next slide please. So this is how we do a spirometry. We just have to blow into that, and it is recommended for children over 5 years of age. to assess the lung function. And relievers, controllers and preventers, I'm just going to give just one word. So relievers are something which would provide immediate relief. Many of you must have heard of Levolin, Nastolin, Diolin, right? So they provide immediate relief, but controllers or preventers is something which has to be used for a longer period, as suggested again by the pediatrician. This would reduce the number of attacks, and this will also prevent the inflammation of the lung. So this is very important. So when there is an attack, please don't panic, be prepared, and it's always important to tell our children in the language that they understand. It will be amused that even a 1.5-year-old would be able to understand if you really tell them the way they understand. And so just relax, make the child sit upright, give 2 puffs of the reliever medication with a spacer. And if there is no improvement in 5 minutes, give 3 to 4 puffs again, and then you should be on the way to your doctor. So when should patients seek immediate medical attention? When the initial response is not prompt or as expected, or if the child bends like this and then she's not able to talk in sentences, or we hear V's and all of a sudden now we don't hear any V's. These are all the red flags when you'll have to immediately take them to the emergency room. So inform school and caregivers. Asthma action plan is something the pediatrician or an allergist would give you. You'll have to always carry that, and please keep one copy of it with your school nurse as well, and carry inhalers all the time. So this is one thing. As an allergist with respiratory allergies, when a child comes to me with respiratory allergies, the goal for the child for me would be the child should be feeling good all the while, be active all day and sleep well through night. Nothing less than this is acceptable as an allergist for me. So, you know, there's David Beckham. I just put some pictures here just to let you know that asthma is not something, it's not something, a deadly condition wherein you don't ask your child to don't play it, you come and sit because you're going to run out of breath. No. See, all these people with asthma have achieved several things, right? It should be managed, it should and it could be managed very, very well. So this is about respiratory allergies. Very quickly about food allergies. Okay. So very quickly. So what's a food allergy? So food allergy is again a hypersensitivity reaction, especially when the food is taken or sometimes even with touch. So how do we identify food allergies? Vomitings. So after a food is introduced for the first time or sometimes second time, when within 5 minutes or at the most 1 hour, when the child, when you notice vomitings or hives, you know what hives? Hives are these wheals or the rash like insect bites. When we have this mosquito bites, right? Those are called like hives. So when you notice hives or itching of the mouth or throat, swelling of the eyelids, lips, tongue and throat, difficulty breathing, swallowing, loss of consciousness. These are some of the symptoms. Not necessarily everything should be, all of these said things should be in every child. It could just be vomitings, it could just be the hives. So these are the hives. And this is a young lady who was, who just took, she just inhaled peanuts. I think this was somewhere in the subway and she was traveling with someone who was eating peanuts. She just sniffed it and then she landed it in the emergency. So when does it happen? This is, I told you, after ingesting any new food, maybe for the first or the second time at the most. So here again, typically you see this in Hollywood movies, right? A person goes to the restaurant and they just have something and immediately they blow up and with all these things called 911. So that typically is food allergy. Most of the times it's a severe food allergy, but not necessarily everyone should have it. It can sometimes be just some hives, some rashes. It could be just a few episodes of vomitings or difficulty breathing or exacerbation of asthma. Because sometimes children, when parents come to me and say, my child has been having these hives, I fed him chicken yesterday, probably this is the reason today he's having hives. Most likely that's not. I wouldn't even test him for the chicken or food allergy. Because the timing is very important. It should be within, as the child is eating, or within the first few minutes, or at the most an hour or 2 maybe. And consistency is also very important. So what I mean by it is, let's say that someone has, some parent thinks that the child has been having milk allergy. So he says that, okay fine, my child has had milk and then had a couple of vomitings in the next 1 hour. And then the next day I fed him yogurt or curd and he was fine. And today again I fed him milk and then he started vomiting. And a week later fed something else. I mean, the milk products is okay. So there's no consistency, right? So for us to diagnose food allergy, it should be consistent each and every time the child, when we think the child has a particular food, when that food is given, he should have one of the symptoms that I've mentioned there. Because many times parents come avoiding like 10 to 15 foods, thinking that that might be the reason for allergies, which is not true. At least now I think we're all very well, right? Okay. So the most common food allergens throughout the world are these 8 ones: milk, soya, peanut, tree nuts, wheat, fish, shellfish. These are the most common 8 allergens throughout the world. So having said this, in India we also see lentils. Tur dal, moong dal and chickpea and all. So I think it also depends upon the culture and what we grow up eating. So what are the role of vegetables and fruits? It's very unlikely to have allergies to vegetables and fruits, at least not so often as we see the other 8 ones. So in medicine it's nothing like 100% no allergies to vegetables, fruits, right? But it's very unlikely. And the role of food colors and additives, as I've said earlier, it can be allergy-like reaction. So, and unfortunately, we do not have any testing for this colors and preservatives. We just have to maintain a food diary and just will have to avoid it. So now we'll take an opinion poll very quickly. So 1-year-old baby girl introduced boiled egg in her diet for the first time. She broke into hives within 5 minutes. A week later introduced omelette with similar hives and an episode of vomitings within 10 minutes. So how many of you think it is food allergy? Yeah? That's great. Yeah, I do agree. Okay, you're all listening. Thank you. So yes, I think it points towards food allergy. So the next question here. A 3-year-old boy with frequent episodes of runny nose past 6 months since starting kindergarten. Parents have avoided eggs, chicken, wheat, oranges, apples and several other fruits like pineapple in child's diet, attributing them as the cause for this current condition. So how many of you think it's food allergy? Thank you so much. Yes, it is not. So because the pointer here is again starting kindergarten, the first 6 months with multiple infections, we all know. That's great. So how do you introduce solids in an infant for the first time? We always know one new food at a time, right? The first time. Because what happens is when you give a khichdi of 10 to 12, we never know what, if it breaks into hives, what could be the reason. So one new food at a time, and if the child tolerates it, you can add the second one or just maybe replace it. And how long does a food allergy last? Many parents ask like, my child has milk allergy, so shouldn't he be taking milk the whole life? Fortunately, the answer is he can. So 70 to 80% of children with milk and egg allergy would outgrow it within the first 5 years of age, even earlier maybe. But unfortunately, the reverse is true for other allergies such as peanut and tree nuts. Only 20 to 30% of them might outgrow them by 5 years of age. So what's the next step when a food allergy is suspected? Of course, you go to a pediatrician or an allergy specialist and they take your history, and if it is needed, only then they would ask for a skin prick test to that particular food. And please do not, because I've seen a lot of advertisements in the newspapers saying that we do this food panel or allergy panel for 3,000 rupees, 4,000 rupees. Please do not go by that, because first of all, I'm not sure if they're doing the test properly, and secondly, if you're not, even if the test comes out to be positive, but if you're able to take it, it only means sensitization and not allergy. So please do not go and then get this test done on your own. So what is after diagnosis? It is important to do that, avoid that particular food in the diet, right? And it's also very important to learn to read labels on the packaged food. Because if it is milk allergy, then they sometimes mention it as contents dairy, right? And sometimes they might say contains caseins, contains lactose, whey and all, right? So it's very important to learn to read the labels. And carry antihistamines as advised by your doctor. Antihistamines are these anti-allergic medications, Allegra, levocetirizine. And if severe, may advise shots. Dr. Shivranjani ma'am has already told you how to use Epi yesterday, right? That's very important. And of course, inform school management or school nurse about the condition. and always carry the allergy action plan. So these are my daughters here. I just want to tell you that I really can relate to you as a parent because none of us are fully prepared for it. We just try to be better each and every time. I think this is the end of my presentation. Thank you all very much.